Hello. Today we will be talking about models of understanding interpersonal relationships. We have discussed some of the basic models of understanding relationships. Now, communication, as we all know, is a dynamic process. It is dynamic and it is continuous. It is dynamic, it is two-way, it moves in all directions, and continuous because just by one single communication transaction, it does not get finished. That is, when you speak, the receiver speaks, the sender understands. When the sender speaks, the receiver understands. And the receiver gives a feedback, which is received by the sender. Then the sender again gives a feedback. So it's a continuous process. It does not finish at one single transaction. Now, over the years, a lot of researchers have tried to come up with effective, efficient models of communication to improve and increase the understanding of communication, because it has become a known fact that communication skills are vital for any organization and for any human being to function. Now, the various models of human communication, we'll be discussing just some of the models of communication. At the very beginning, initially, the first model was devised by Aristotle. Aristotle's basic model had a speaker, the speech, that is the communication, and the audience. So the speaker is the sender, the speech is the communication, the message that is to be communicated, the audience is the receiver. So according to Aristotle, these were the three components of a basic model of communication. Moving on, in 1949, there was the Shannon-Weaver mathematical model. Shannon-Weaver, he devised a model which had 5 components. First, there was the sender or the source of information. The source of information was then encoded in the appropriate, the message was there, which was encoded in the appropriate symbols, actions, or emotions to be passed on. A channel through which the message was passed on. Receiver is the person who receives the message. It could be one, it could be more. The destination is the receiver, is the message. But the most important part is the feedback. The feedback which was missing in the initial Shannon-Weaver model. The feedback is mandatory because till the sender gets the feedback, he is not sure whether the receiver has got the same information as was intended by him, whether the understanding of the message as he understood is the same as the receiver has understood, as is same to what the sender intended it to understand. But Shannon-Weaver definitely included noise. Noise is any interference which happens in the communication process. Noise can occur at any level of the communication process. It could be at the sender level. He could use the wrong code. He could use the wrong encoding process. He could have used the wrong channel. The he could have used the wrong medium. And then again, on the part of the receiver, his decoding could have been faulty. His decoding could have been faulty for various reasons. That is, his understanding of the symbols was not appropriate. He has a problem, his attitude problem, his prejudices, his biases, various reasons. Or noise could also be a physical noise, that is because of the any physical disturbance which could be in the during the transmission of the message. For example, if there is a crackling sound in the telephone, or there is any physical noise outside during a conference, there's music blaring outside, it disturbs you. Your attention wavers and you do not focus on the message that you're receiving or the communication information that you're receiving. So the noise can occur at any stage of the communication process. Now moving on to the next model, this is the basic simple model or process of communication. In this, there is a message which needs to be communicated, then there is a transmitter, the communication symbols which are used, the communication channel. Communication channels can be telephone, written communication, that is a letter, memo, or memorandums, newspaper articles, magazine articles. So these are the various communication channels, loudspeakers, media, remember media, and the receiver. Then the receiver, he has understood the message, he gives the feedback. So this is a complete cycle which goes on, but this is just the basic model which has been understood over the years by the various researchers who have worked upon the communication model. Communication process. Now first focusing on the message. The message, when the sender, the message could be in the form of speaking, that is talking, that could be, he could encode it by an oral symbols, by his speaking techniques, or it could be a drawing, a painting. When a painter paints, he is also trying to communicate something. So a painting or a drawing could also be a message which the person wants to give. During your presentations or during your report writing or during any form of your reporting, you might be using graphs, tables, or any other drawings which are also a message, which give a message that is the statistical analysis of the say it could be the sales, it could be the purchase, etc. Then acting is also again a form of communication. It is a form of message which a person wants to give by his acting. When a person is speaking, just the words which are coming out of his mouth are not the complete communication message. It can be added on by his non-verbal cues. So similarly, when an actor speaks a particular sentence, it is the kind of emotions that he puts into those words that he is speaking that make us understand the meaning of what he is trying to say. So, for example, a simple sentence like "get out," if it is said in a joking way, laughingly, it means a joke. But if you say it with anger and aggression, that means you are serious about it, and the person is extremely angry. Or it could just be said casually, "Yeah, okay, fine, get out." That is like finish. Your job is done now. You please leave. So it is the emotion, the non-verbal cues that is part of the acting, which give emphasis or in fact give meaning to the words that are being said by the sender. Then writing is again another form of the sending the message, which the tool, the encoding process that sender chooses. Writing needs to be perfected. Your writing communication, again, that is an art which needs to be enhanced, and again there are various styles and tones in writing. In your written communication, you have to develop a good communication skills. You have to follow a certain format in business organization when you're writing during your written communication. That is, you'll have to see whether it has to be, the communication has to be sent to by a letter, a format, email, or by a memorandum format, or it is a report which has to be written in a report format. Then again, there are the various skills or uh, the various factors which you have to keep in mind during your writing, which we will be discussing in one of the next slides. The symbols. What are the symbols? Symbols are the words that you choose when you're speaking or when you're writing. The actions which enhance or give meaning to your words, that is during your acting or during the non-verbal cues. The numbers that are used, sometimes the numbers are used, figures are used, pictures are used, graphs are used. So all these are the symbols that are used by the sender to encode the message. Receiver. Receiver is, he listens. Now listening again is, there is passive listening and there is empathetic listening or critical listening. So various listening processes are there. The receiver should be able to listen or empathetically so that he can understand the meaning. Observing is another factor that he does. He observes. No, besides listening, he observes the non-verbal cues. That is, what are the reactions or actions of the person, what are his expressions, his gestures, his head movement, his eye contact, his posture. All these give cues or signals to the receiver and give meaning to whatever the sender is speaking. Reading, again, reading is a simple thing which whatever the message has to be read, but again the receiver has to have an understanding of the language used. That is, the language used by the sender should be appropriate to the receiver's understanding so that he can understand what is being written and said. This is another example of a model based on questions by Harold D. Laswell. Now, Laswell designed a model which was based on questions. He said rather than the sender or just the receiver, or besides that, you have to see what are the answer certain questions as to what, when, how, which, etc. By answering these questions, you can come up with a another form of simple communication model. It begins with what effect, that is the sender. He has to keep in mind what is the effect which is going to be of my communication. Then to whom he is sending, this has to be kept in mind, because the message will have to be based on to the person, based upon the person's understanding, the receiver's understanding, knowledge and skill, his capability. Then in which channel, then the sender has to decide the appropriate channel. Appropriate channel is whether he will be written, oral, these are the media, sorry, written, oral, spoken, and besides telephone, letter, or email, what are the channels which he will be using, or whether he'll be sending it through a telegram or email, and if it is for a public audience, for a larger audience, whether it will be ad in the newspaper or ad in the radio. So in which channel, and says what message, what is the message, then comes the content of the message, then who communicates. So these are the various questions which need to be answered to understand the communication process. This is a model devised by Laswell. Again, another model which is a comprehensive model by LELAND. Now, he has again given various descriptions for the various components, the basic components of the communication model, that is the sender, receiver, the transmitter, and the feedback. Let's take one at a time, beginning with the sender. The sender, he stimulates, creates a need or desire. That is, there is a need or a desire in him to communicate. Then the need could be because he wants to get a certain work done from the receiver, and or it could be that he wants to pass on some information, or he wants to direct them, inform them, control, motivate, whatever, the various functions of communication. The need could be based on any of the functions. Next, he will analysis of the content of the message. Whatever is the content of the message needs to be analyzed. That is, the purpose, the objective of the message needs to be identified. Why does he want to give the message? Why does he want to communicate? The objective, then the planning. Once he has analyzed the objective, he has analyzed the content of the message, then he has to plan as to how he will write the message or speak the message. What is the way the way the content will be written down or spoken up? That is, what things with the maximum priority will be written or said first, and with the lesser number of priority will be spoken or written down next. Then comes as to what, how, why, to whom, when, and what effect. These are the questions which we discussed in the previous model by Laswell. So then he answers to these questions, that is, what is to be said, how it is to be said, why it is to be said, to whom it is to be said. That is, the to whom is again important, because the understanding of the receiver is of maximum importance. You have to frame and plan and arrange your message in a way that it is understood clearly by the receiver. To do that, you have to have some basic idea of the receiver's understanding. So, and when it is to be given, the time, duration, and what effect. What is the effect that you want the receiver to understand? So, because the effect that you want the receiver to have, the action that you want the receiver to do, according to that, you will be able to give the non-verbal cues, or you will be able to choose the style and tone of your written communication also. Now, what is this supported by? All this which the sender does, the sender also has his own personality, his own perceptions. So, while doing all this is affected by the sender's background. What kind of a background he is from, What is his education level, his experience, his skills, likes and dislikes, attitudes, feelings, interest. All these factors enforce upon his planning of the message, his communication, his whole communication process. That is how he communicates, how he designs the model, what kind of a language he chooses, what kind of a non-verbal communication skills he chooses. So all these are on the basis of his background, education, experience, his skills, likes and dislikes, etc. Moving on to the message. The content of the message. The content of the message includes the organization, the how you will organize it, that is how you will arrange it. It is always required to arrange it in the by the level of priority. Now, organizing also affects what kind of an action you want, what kind of a that is in case of firm communication skills, that when you're reminding somebody or when you're sending a written letter for delayed payment and all, there has to be a certain amount of firmness which needs to be used in your communication skills. So all these factors as to the objective of the communication and the various factors which we discussed in the previous slide help in organizing the content. They help in choosing the appropriate tone. Like even when you're speaking, your tone can be firm. As in the example I said, get out. Or if you're saying it jokingly, just get out. So similarly, in your written skill, if in case it is a firm written communication that needs to be given, that is in case of delayed payments or any other such any alteration between the receiver and the sender, the firmness of the letter gives the correct message. That is, the tone and the style which you choose in written or oral communication needs to be chosen and thought about carefully. Now, adaptation is because how you will adapt your content according to the understanding, appeals, persuasiveness, motivation, action, whatever is the need of the communication, the message, what is the need and objective of the message, you will adapt it accordingly. That is, the whether it has to be persuasive, whether you expect what kind of an action you expect, whether you want to motivate them, or it is an appeal or a request. The content will be adapted to all these factors in the mentioned just now. Form is again choosing the appropriate media selected, that is the which media should be chosen for according to the objective and the purpose of the communication. Moving on to the characteristics of effective message. In written communication, there are the 7 C's which are important. These 7 C's are which you always should keep in mind for any organizational communication, whether it be written or whether it be oral. For all of them, it is clear, clarity should be there in your communication, be it written and be it oral. Whatever is being written down, it should be clear, simple, and simple language should be used. Clarity should be there. Clarity should be there not only in what is being written but also in your mind. That is, what if the thing is clear in your mind, if you know you have a good understanding of what you are speaking of or of what you are writing, there will be clarity in your message also. So courteousness, politeness is in any form of organization communication is absolutely mandatory. Your communication skill, be it written or be it oral, should be polite and courteous. Even in written skills, the required greetings and the required thank yous should be mentioned. So this gives a polite and a courteous uh, feeling or effect to your communication. Concise, written communication or oral communication, whichever media you're choosing, the communication should be concise, because business communication, nobody has in a business or environment, nobody has too much time to read too much or listen to too much. Everybody is overworked. There is a lot of work on everybody. So the more concise and brief and um, concrete it is, the more better effect it will have. That is, just be to the point. Just what is required should be written, and no extras and no superficial prose is required in business communication at least. The message should be complete. Complete, that is, all the facts and required for the communication should be mentioned. Example, I'm just giving a brief example, that is the date, the time, the duration, whatever, for everything. If there is any other information, that is the precise information which is needed, should be mentioned in the letter or the spoken communication, so that the message which is to be sent across should be received completely. For example, if you send a message, it will be holiday on Wednesday, so that is an incomplete message. The date and the month, the year should also be mentioned. Correct. Please check that the information that you are passing on in written or in oral communication in a business organization is correct. That is, if it is incorrect, it will have a bad effect on your credibility. You will lose your own credibility and trust upon people. And please, it is best to recheck from various other sources besides your major source through which from which you have got the information, that the information or the message that you are passing on is correct. Consideration. Consideration is again close to courteousness. The message should have consideration. It should be considerate and courteous, polite again in the communication process. Concentration. Concentration is that you should focus on the message, be it receiving or sending. When you are sending a message, focus and concentrate on the message that you are sending, so that all these various the 6 C's can be followed. That is, if the information is complete, if the information is correct and it is clear, and it will be understood by the receiver. These factors should be kept in mind, and for this you need to focus and concentrate on the message which you are sending. Now, media and channel of transmission. There is always a slight confusion as to what is media and what is the channel. The channel is the verbal or non-verbal communication, the spoken or written communication. So this is the channel that you choose for communicating, that is by words, spoken, written, action, emotions, everything comes under channel. Now, media are the medium that you use, that is whether it be a telephone, a letter, a memo, an email, report, or a face-to-face exchange. Again, choosing the correct media and the correct channel is very important. There are situations when it is important to have a face-to-face interaction, and there are circumstances when it is important to send a written communication. So there are situations when an interpersonal communication is important, and if you send a written message and the message will not be completely understood, because if something is very important, there are times when you have to choose two media to send the communication. That is, you send a letter also and you confirm it with the person, and a face-to-face also, to enhance the importance of the message. Therefore, choosing the correct channel and the correct media is upon the communicator or the sender as to what he is deciding on, what is appropriate, and what is also the protocol of the organization. That also should be kept in mind. There are certain organizations which have certain set protocols as to the way, the media through which the communication will be sent to the various levels of hierarchy. So, keeping in mind the protocol, the situation, the circumstances, you will have to choose the appropriate channel and the appropriate media. Receiver. Now the receiver receives through his 5 senses, then he interprets the message. The interpreting of the message by the receiver is on the basis of his understanding, on the basis of his perception. His understanding is his knowledge of the symbols, and his perception is based upon his background, his education, his past experiences. Persuasion and motivation. Now the receiver could be either persuaded or motivated. That is the action which is intended by the sender. Now all this, that is his understanding, his perception and his interpretation, are based upon his background, his education, his experience, and his skills. So based upon this, he will develop an understanding to the message which he receives. The action could be favorable, unfavorable, delayed, ignored, or stored. Now, the action which the receiver could take Could be any of these, that is favorable, unfavorable, delayed. Again, this is based upon his likes and dislikes, his attitudes, his feelings, his interests, and of course his understanding of the message, and how well the sender is able to motivate the person to take that action or not. Now, this is a model. Here we see that the sender, another model, has sends the message based upon his knowledge, his experience, and his feelings. And the receiver who receives the message depends upon how well he understands the message, depends upon his knowledge, his experience, and his feelings. Now, the message is the communication as such, as to what the sender is trying to send, and what the receiver understands depends upon how much their experiences, their knowledge, feelings are in common. That is, if the circle of experience and understanding and the knowledge of the sender and the receiver is more common, if it is more in sync with each other, they have more shared experiences, they have more, similar knowledge, and they have similar attitudes, then the circle of the message understood will be more. That is, the understanding of the receiver will be more with the what the sender intended to send. Now, to summarize, we all know that communication is a continuous and dynamic process. Number of models have been over the years have been developed over the past by the various researchers. Aristotle was among the first, and his model had three ingredients, that is the speaker, the speech, the audience. He just had three ingredients, that is the speaker was the person, the sender, the speech is the communication, the message, and the audience was the receiver who received the message. Another important model which has come over the years is the Shannon-Weaver model. It had five ingredients: a source, a transmitter, a signal, a receiver, and the destination. A destination. Now, over the years, the models have changed. We've discussed various models. So the basic model is the source, the transmitter, the signal, the receiver, and the feedback. The feedback is the most important part which was missing in this model, because without the feedback, the sender will not understand whether he has understood the message or not. It will not be clear, and it will be because now we say that communication is a two-way process. With the second way, the opposite way is the feedback. Without feedback, the communication process is not complete. So the transmitter is the sender, the signal is the message which is being received by the receiver. Now, the receiver has his own understanding of the message, that is because based upon his own knowledge, based upon his own attitude, his own feelings. Similarly, the sender, he will devise the message or send the message according to based upon his now knowledge, based upon his understanding and his emotions and his feelings. So the action which will be taken is not necessary whether the receiver will take the action as expected by the sender, or whether he will understand he will have a similar understanding of the message as anticipated by the sender. The more the more the circle of knowledge between the sender and the receiver is similar, more their experiences are similar, more their interactions are similar or close, or more will be the understanding of the message between the sender and the receiver. Now, Harold D. Lassell designed another model based on questions. That is, who says, and who says it, and who says what, in which channel, to whom, and with what effect. Again, we discussed another comprehensive model which was developed by LELAND Brown. So, I hope after discussing these various communication models, you will be able to understand what the basic communication model, which is that there is a message or need by the sender to give a message or communicate for certain actions. He encodes the message according to his understanding, his background, and his attitude, his feelings, into appropriate symbols. He transmits the message through appropriate choosing the correct media and channels. media being the written or spoken, and channels being the various telephone or email and letter, etc. The receiver receives it, he decodes the message according to his understanding, his perceptions, his background and his feelings. Once he has understood the message, the understanding could be different from what the sender has intended to send, then he gives a feedback. Feedback could be an action or written communication, oral communication, or non-verbal communication. That is just by a nod. A nod could be a feedback. Just a shaking of the head could be a feedback to the sender, for the sender to understand that yes, the receiver has understood my message. Now, communication is a continuous process. It keeps going on. The receiver sends the message, the feedback back to the sender that yes, I have understood this, and the sender again moves on and uh, gives a feedback that yes, okay, fine, I know now that you have understood. This could be by his yes or no, again another a blink of an eye or a shake of a head. So this is a continuous process. I hope you have developed a clear understanding of the communication model. That will be all. Thank you.